It was January 13th, 2007, and 19-year-old college freshman Wade Steffey was just like any other college student. He loved the social scene of campus life and enjoyed spending time with friends when he wasn't doing homework or attending lectures. Wade Steffey was a student at Purdue University. Purdue University is a university in Indiana. It is a pretty prestigious university that has produced many notable alumni. Wade made his way into the cafeteria and sat down to eat dinner with his friends. It was the first Friday of that new semester, and he was still getting used to his new classes as well as his new life as a freshman college student. Wade spent an hour chatting with his friends in the cafeteria about what they were going to do that weekend. There were many other students in the cafeteria with them. If Wade wasn't paying attention, he would have overstayed. He checked the clock on the wall of the cafeteria and noticed that he had to go. At about 8:20 p.m., Wade made his way out of the cafeteria and then the building. He turned to his right, where there was another building on the campus. The building was called Owen Hall and was used for housing students. Owen Hall wasn't where Wade's dorm was located, but he went in anyway. It was not a long-distance walk. He was out of the building and in another within a minute. Wade knew exactly which room to visit. He knocked on the door, and he was let in. Everyone was chatting and having a good time. It wasn't campus life without some alcohol, so Owen opened up a bottle of beer and started drinking. It was his first drink of the day, and he figured he deserved it. After all, the stress of school was starting to catch up to him. At around 9:30 p.m., Wade left Owen Hall and made his way to a fraternity party, half a mile away from campus. Wade was at this huge party for several hours until midnight, when he realized he wasn't wearing his jacket. He tried to remember where he left his jacket. At that point, Wade had drunk several bottles of alcoholic beverages and was feeling tipsy. Wade informed his friends that he had left his jacket in Owen Hall, so they said goodbye to him, and he left the party early. Wade walked the short distance back to Owen Hall. At around 12:30 a.m., Wade made it to the door of Owen Hall. However, there was a problem. The problem was that the doors to the dorms were all locked at night, and only those with a key would be able to get in. Since Wade didn't live in Owen Hall, he didn't have a key. He tried calling several numbers, hoping that his friends who live in Owen Hall would come down and let him in. In total, he made 6 calls. However, 4 of the calls were to the wrong people. When he asked him to open the door, none of them knew what he was talking about, so they hung up. The other 2 phone calls that Wade made were to the right people, but they didn't pick up the calls, as they were already asleep. Frustrated, Wade started pouncing on the door to get someone's attention who could maybe open the door for him. One person did notice the knocking eventually, but upon seeing the drunken man by the door, they decided not to let him in. Wade initially refused to give up and kept knocking for a while longer. But he decided it wasn't worth it and gave up. 3 days later, on January 16, 2007, Wade's roommate came back home. He had been absent from campus for a whole week due to a family event. The first thing he noticed when he entered his shared room with Wade is that Wade was not in the room. The roommate texted Wade but got no replies. Then, he started looking for Wade around the campus and asking anyone if they had seen Wade. None of them had in the past couple of days. Those who did remember seeing him saw him last Friday, the night of the fraternity party. It was soon made clear that Wade was missing. The roommate, along with a couple of people who knew Wade, contacted the police, and an investigation was launched. The cell phone data revealed that Wade's phone was still somewhere on campus. This was 16 years ago, so the data could not reveal where on campus Wade was located exactly. A massive manhunt ensued, made up of hundreds of volunteers. Most of them were students from Purdue University. They made their way around every crevice of the campus, but they could not find Wade. It was like Wade had disappeared into thin air. About 4 days into the search, one of the volunteers found something. They found one of Wade's shoes, right outside the door of a maintenance room. They searched the maintenance room but could not find Wade, so they reported the finding to the police. This search would go on for weeks, until eventually exam season rolled around, and everyone was too busy preparing for their finals to keep up the search. About 2 months after Wade went missing, a maintenance worker noticed a popping sound when he was inside a laundry room, where several laundry machines were operating. He made his round around the laundry machines, as he believed it may have been a loose coin jammed inside one of the machines. When he finished making his rounds, he was certain that the laundry machines were fine, and that the sound was coming from elsewhere. He went out the laundry room and entered a hall. As soon as he entered the hall, he heard the sound again, but this time, it was louder. This means he was getting closer to the source of the noise. Directly across from the laundry room was another door that led into the utility room. Curious, he got out his key and entered the room. The utility room looked well kept, but the maintenance worker knew that something was off. Police were called, and they were finally able to find out what happened to Wade after the last sighting of him. In the early morning of January 14, 2007, at around 12:30 a.m., after Wade had been pounding on the door for a few minutes, but got no positive response from the residents living in Owen Hall, Wade left the scene. Except, he wasn't ready to give up yet. He made his way around the building, in search of another entrance. And he found it. He noticed that the door was not at ground level, and it wasn't at ground level because it was never meant for any students to get in via that door. There was a railing surrounding the door at ground level, to prevent students from slipping in. In his drunken state, Wade didn't think that maybe it wasn't a good idea to enter a door that was clearly designed to keep people from entering. Wade put one leg over the railing and then another, before jumping down. Wade tried the handle, and it turned. He must have felt that the luck was on his side, because the door wasn't locked. The door should have been locked, but it wasn't. Wade was able to open the door and slip in without sounding any alarm. Wade wanted to find a door that led out from the room, so he could get into the rest of Owen Hall. But it was no easy task, because the room was entirely dark, except for a trickle of light coming from the open door. Worried that the door would lock behind him, Owen left a shoe jammed into the entrance of the door. It's unclear whether someone found the shoe and unjammed it, or if the shoe got ejected from the door when the pressure of the closing door got too much. But that was where the volunteer found Wade's shoe 2 months after his disappearance. Owen felt around the room for a light switch, but could not find it. However, he could feel something else. It was cold to the touch. Metallic. Something big and flat. He could tell it was some sort of machine because it was producing a humming noise. Wade figured that he would just hug around the machine until he was able to walk past it, and hopefully find another door out. However, what he didn't anticipate was how big this machine was. Wade pressed on. He knew the machine should end at some point, and he would be able to walk around it. At some point, he came to a narrow opening between the machine and the wall. The opening was not big enough for a person to walk through, because it was never designed for anyone to do so. Wade, however, decided he had made it into the room too far in to turn back, so he tried turning his body sideways to see if he could get in, and he could. He started sliding his way further into the narrow opening. His back was pressed up against the wall, and his chest was pressed up against the machine. He slid along the crevice for a while, but his foot got caught up in something, and he tripped. But because he was pressed up against the machine and the wall, he couldn't exactly fall to the ground. His body fell sideways, and as he fell, he grabbed hold of something in front of him to stabilize himself. This was when his left ring finger got stuck inside a small hole in the machine, about 2 inches wide. Instantly, Wade's body lights up like a Christmas tree. The hole that he just stuck himself into contained exposed wires, and it shot 2,000 to 4,000 volts of electricity into him. For reference, prisoners on death row receive 2,000 volts of electricity. So, the amount of electricity passing through Wade's body at that moment would have been tremendous. The room that Wade got stuck inside of was an electrical vault. This is the room that transforms a large amount of electricity into smaller usable chunks and distributes it to the rest of the campus. This machine was covered with protective material that prevent electrocution risks, but the part of the machine that Wade was stuck in was the back of the machine. where exposed wires were not that rare and where protective material was not present. Wade died almost instantly, while still in a drunken state. He would remain in that semi-fallen position, with his left ring finger still stuck inside the hole, being continuously zapped with 2,000 to 4,000 volts of electricity, for 2 whole months, before he was discovered. By that point, Wade's body was starting to leak body fluids. The zapping noise comes from the contact between Wade's body fluid and the misguided electricity. Wade's body was not visible from the door, where the maintenance worker's view was, but since he smelled something funny, he knew something was in there. He walked around the machine, and that's when he made the grisly find. Wade's family was relieved that their son was finally brought home, but heartbroken by what happened to their son. They sued Purdue University, and won. Purdue University was at fault for not securing the door that led to this tragedy. Any mischievous college kid would have gotten in, and possibly ended up in the same place as Wade. The family received a compensation of $500,000. They used that money to set up a scholarship in Wade's name. Thank you for watching until the end.